2-3 test. Microphone test 1, 2. Sandy, this is a microphone test.
Dear colleagues, thank you very much for all those excellencies.
Chers collègues, merci beaucoup. Le directeur général est en route et nous allons bientôt commencer dans 2 minutes cette séance d'information. Merci.
Okay, thank you so much. So welcome to all colleagues, Your Excellencies, ministers, ambassadors, heads of delegation. As you know, we have been doing the weekly member states briefing session, and mainly with colleagues stationed in Geneva. But for today, as per the invitation we have sent to you, we decided to involve capitals, and this is going to be the first of its kind, but we hope it will continue. And the first invitation or the first session with ministers from capitals, we thought would be a good idea if we use it to get the best practices the countries have so far registered. These are countries who have really fought hard with the COVID-19 and who have their experiences that they can share. So I will not start with my speech for today. I would prefer to speak in the end, so we have enough time for the 4 countries that will be presenting today. So I will pass the floor back to Tim, so we can invite our colleagues who are going to be presenting from the 4 countries that were selected for today. Tim.
Thank you very much, DG, and again, a very good morning, evening, afternoon, excellencies, colleagues and friends that have joined us for this extraordinary member state briefing session. DG, just before I pass the floor to the presentations, which will be this week from China, Japan, Republic of Korea, and Singapore, I would just like to highlight that we understand we have ministerial level participation from the following member states: Angola, Bangladesh, Bosnia and Herzegovina, China, Colombia, Dominican Republic, Egypt, France, Guyana, India, Italy, Japan, Lithuania, Maldives, Myanmar, Peru, Philippines, Qatar, Republic of Korea, Singapore, Thailand, the United States of America, and Uruguay. If there are other member states who are represented at ministerial level, could you please alert us by sending an email with that information to the MS COVID-19 mailbox? That's mscovid19@who.int, such as we can be prepared for any potential intervention. As you note, Director General Tedros has just mentioned that we will take the presentations from the 4 countries mentioned. Following those presentations, we then have an opportunity for questions to be raised and provided to the presenters. We also have WHO technical staff here available if there are any technical elements in relationship to those questions which would require a response. So I would now like then to give the floor to His Excellency, the Minister of Health of China, to provide us with the first presentation. Over.
尊敬的各位大使、各位
Distinguished
女士们、先生们，
Dr. Tedros, ministers, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen,
昨
friends.
天召开的
Greetings from
20国
Wuhan.
集团领导
The
人
extraordinary G20 Leaders Summit was held yesterday.
各国领导人
Heads of states and governments stated the tackling of the pandemic and its intertwined health, social, and economic impact is our absolute
和
priority.
经济带来的复杂影响，并承诺建立统一
We
战
are
线。
strongly committed to presenting a united front against this common threat.
在会上，
At the summit,
习近平主席强
President
调，
Xi Jinping
病
reiterated
毒无
that
国界，
this is a virus that respects no borders. The outbreak we are battling is our common enemy. All must work together to build a strongest global network of control treatment,
战
and
胜
that
疫
world
情
has seen.
强大合力，依托世界
President
卫
Xi
生组
Jinping
织
called on
加
G20
强疫
members
情防
to
控，
enhance anti-epidemic information sharing with the support of WHO and proposed that the G20 health ministers meeting be convened as
在
quick
世
as
界卫
possible.
生组织支持下，加强信息沟通，
G20 members should work for information sharing and policy and action coordination with support of the WHO.
刚刚
As
我们在20国集团会议结束后，
we have seen after
支持
the
商业组织
G20 summit,
成员国卫生部长参加视频信息通报会议。
we have seen that WHO is inviting members to attend this briefing session, which I believe will help member states
疫情
maintain a global public health security through the sharing of experience
安
and
全
discussion of response measures.
新冠肺炎疫情发
The
生，
COVID-19 outbreak,
在以习近平同志为
with
核
its
心，
speed and the range of transmission and difficulty in prevention and control, has proved unprecedented in the history of China. Under the strong leadership of Xi Jinping at its core,
控制传染源，
the Chinese people,
切断传播
while
途径，
adhering to the country's basic conditions, have creatively
遏制了疫
applied
情，
the classic principles of infectious disease
改
containment.
变了疫情的流行进程。
We have
武
also
汉
changed
市
the course
为
of
主
disease.
战场的全国
We
本土
have
疫情
made
传播。
Wuhan as the main battleground with help from all over the country to successfully control the disease.
中国
Just
采
as
取
the
了历史
WHO-China
上
Joint Mission has pointed out, in the face of a previously unknown virus, China has rolled out perhaps the most ambitious, agile, and aggressive disease containment effort in history. Within only 7 weeks, China has averted or at least delayed hundreds of thousands of COVID-19 cases in the country, creating a strong first line of defense against international spread.
强有力的第一道防线。当前，
The Chinese government is working
各地各部
to
门
bring the economy and society back to normal through cross-sectoral coordination and targeted measures in a region-specific
我把
approach.
中国经验的内
I would like to summarize the core of China's experience from the following 8 aspects.
一是统一高效的
First, a unified and effective command
以习
system.
近平同志为
The CPC Central Committee, with President Xi Jinping at its core, attaches great importance to the outbreak response by giving comprehensive guidance.
李克强总理
Premier Li Keqiang, who serves as the head of the Central Leading Group on Epidemic
迅速
Response,
形成了
rapidly mobilizes, coordinated, and promoted the implementation of prevention and control measures by multiple departments and regions.
国务院联防联控
The
机制
joint prevention and control mechanisms of the State Council reinforces overall planning and coordination and mobilizes governments at all levels. This has led to an overall strengthening of the work with an all-government and all-society
二是
approach.
依法科学精准的
Second,
防控策略，
law-based, science-driven, and precise prevention and control measures. The State Council has included COVID-19 in Category B of notifiable infectious diseases, but treated as so in Category A and also in line with the international and domestic
完
rules.
善信息，
We have improved the information release
向社会
mechanism
及时
so
通
that
报
we can update the society on the latest
各省份
developments. All provinces have timely launched and adjusted their emergency response mechanisms and conducted the prevention and control in accordance with relevant laws and regulations. To ensure a coordinated national response, we have set up 4 lines of defense. The first line is to win the battle in Wuhan and Hubei province by preventing local transmission and export of cases. The second line is to prevent a major outbreak in Beijing by resolutely cutting off the sources of imported cases.
第3道防线，阻断重点。湖北周边6省建立联防联控机
In
制，
Hubei's surrounding
采取
areas,
措施，
Hubei has
有效防
established
止
a joint prevention and control mechanism with 6 neighboring
第4道防线，
provinces.
坚决遏制全国疫情传播。
The fourth line is to resolutely
3是关
contain
口
the
前移，
spread of the
重心
epidemic
下沉的防
nationwide.
控模式。我们强调关口前移、重心下沉的防控模式，
Emphasize
构筑
this
群
model
防群控的严密防线，
and
贯彻早发
the
现、
approach of
早报
taking
告、早
early
隔离、
measures,
早
early
治
report
疗的
and
4等
early
措施。
isolation
6
and
次
early
修订
treatment.
防控方案，
We have
落实各项
revised the
防
prevention
控
and
措施，
control protocol for 6
印发
times,
15项
and
处方案，
we
针
have
对
issued
重点人群、公共
15
场所、
technical
重点单位
guidelines which
采取
focus
更
on
有针
vulnerable
对性的
groups
防
such
控
as the
措施，
elderly and children
压实
and
主
key
体责任，
places like
保障有序湖北。
stations, shopping malls.
在巩固境内防控措施的同时，进一步
We,
加强
while
防范
maintaining
境外疫情输入、
containment measures within the country, we have further strengthened the control of imported cases
切实
from
巩固
abroad to
当前的
prevent their
防控成
sustained
果。
spread. These measures
4是统一
are
调配
expected
医疗
to
资源，
consolidate
疫情发
the
生后，
achievement so far.
病人
The
数量
fourth,
大幅度增长。武
with
汉
the
市
coordinated
迅速改造扩
deployment
容
of medical
病理
resources
院，
since the outbreak,
短期内
the number
将
of
一批体
patients
育馆、
have
会展中
surged
心、
over a
培训
period of
中心
time.
等
Wuhan
改造
rapidly
成
renovated
方舱
and
医院
expanded
和
designated
隔离场所，
hospitals.
建立了火神山和雷神山医院，
And we
增加
set up the
床位
Huashensan
部
Hospital and Leishanshan
武汉市收
Hospital.
治新冠肺炎的医疗机构，包括方舱医院，床位最
Wuhan
多时达
includes
4万，
Fangcang Hospital, and the number of beds provided by these facilities amounted to 41,000. They expanded the capacity of healthcare
调
institutions.
派3个移动 P3 实验室，大幅
3
提高
mobile
核酸检测，
P3 labs were
短期
dispatched
内
to increase
迅
the
速扩充
PCR test capacity.
确保
These
重症
measures
患者
quickly
在
expanded
定
medical
点医院
resources in a short period
轻
of
症患
time.
者
In this
方舱医
way,
院治疗，
critical cases
一
are
是
treated in
轻症患
designated
者
hospitals.
无法排除
Mild
的
cases
发
are
热患
treated
者
in makeshift
和
hospitals,
密
while
切接触者
suspected mild cases,
在隔离点
few
治疗观
patients
察，
with unknown
避免
cause and
社
close
区传播。
contacts were treated and quarantined to avoid community
5是密切协
transmission.
作，
Fifth, the rapid development
从
of
全国
treatment
选派
capacity. We have
340多
deployed
支
more
医疗队
than
和国
340
家
medical
紧
teams
急
and
医学救
national
援队，
emergency medical
超过
rescue teams
4
from
2 0
across
名
the
优
country,
秀医务
with
人
more
员，
than
紧急
42,000
支援，
outstanding healthcare workers
其中
to assist
重症医学
Hubei.
科、
Among them, more
感染
than
科、呼吸
15,000
科、
specialize
医患
in
内科和麻
critical
醉科的专
medicine,
业人员
infection,
达到了
respiratory,
15000 人。
circulatory medicine,
我们坚持集中
and
患者、集中专家、
anesthesia.
集中
We
资源、
gather
集
patients,
中救治，
experts, and resources
组
for
织
better
多学
treatment
科专家，
outcomes. Our
结合临床实
multidisciplinary
践，
team of medical
7次
experts
修
have
订
revised the
新冠肺炎
diagnosis and treatment
优化重症
protocols
病治策略，
7 times based
迅
on
速
their clinical
改造
practice.
开
We
放
optimized the
防卫
strategy for treating
工作上，
critically ill patients,
和实力
upgraded
较强的
over
大医院
9,000
等建制接
intensive
管
care beds,
重症病人，加强呼
directed
吸机、
stronger
监护
hospitals
仪、
to take over
人
the
工膜肺等生命支持设备
intensive
的配
care
备，
units, mobilized the life support
提
equipment.
高治愈率、收治率，
We have
降低感染率、
increased the
病亡率，
treatment and recovery
坚
rate
持
and
呼吸
decreased the
结合，
infection rate
运用中
and
药变
mortality
证，
rate.
发
We
挥
have
中药
utilized
独特作用，
traditional Chinese medicine and
就是
Western
广泛
medicine,
运用高科
promoting
技手
the
段，
unique role of TCM based on the patient conditions. 6 is the broad application of high-tech methods. The Chinese scientists and research worked day and night and identified the pathogen in record time and shared the whole genome sequence, probes and primers of some virus strains immediately with the international community, making great contribution. We coordinated multiple institutions to simultaneously advance vaccine development. 7th, for people and by the people, the Chinese nation has the philosophy and tradition of embracing the world, assisting those in difficulties, and sacrificing oneself for the country. In face of the epidemic, we showed the responsibility at home and abroad. 1.4 billion people are united as one person, consciously fulfill our citizen obligations and carry out home quarantine and self-protection. They made great sacrifices and contributions. Our healthcare workers have acted fearlessly, rushed to the front line, and made miracles for life. They have fully demonstrated and interpreted the lofty spirit of respecting life, saving lives, and helping wounds, willing to dedicate and boundless love. The 8th is to carry out in-depth international cooperation in an open, transparent, and responsible manner. We immediately informed the international community, including the WHO, of the outbreak and shared the virus gene genome sequence, probes, and primes. We received the WHO expert team from January the 20th to the 21st, and the WHO China Joint Mission from February the 16th to the 24th, respectively. We held a briefing on sharing Chinese experience in the prevention and treatment of COVID-19. We established the Knowledge Center for China's experience in response to COVID-19. We have carried out over 30 sessions of technical exchanges by video conferencing with the WHO and over 100 countries. We have shared technical solutions, including China's diagnosis, treatment, and control protocols with countries in need, and will extend support with our capacity. As of March 25th, upon invitation, China has sent 5 groups of experts to Italy, Serbia, and Cambodia, and has contributed a grant of $20 million to WHO to support international cooperation against COVID-19 to help developing countries improve their response capacities. Viruses and epidemics are the common enemies of mainland. The only right choice for us is to help each other and overcome the difficulties together. The virus is spreading rapidly worldwide. We have great empathy. While making great efforts to do our work within the country, China is willing to actively participate in international cooperation in the fight against the epidemic, learn from each other, and try our best to provide medical supplies and technical assistance to countries and international organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, as DG rightly pointed out at the G20 summit yesterday, all countries must fight, unite, and ensure this never happens again. We call on all shareholders, stakeholders, to actively implement the statement of the Leaders' Summit, work together with all countries to overcome difficulties and jointly build a health community with a shared future for mankind. Thank you. 谢谢。
Like to invite His Excellency Minister of Health of Japan to take the floor and provide the next presentation. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Can help you consider how to combat COVID-19 in your country. Slide 2. First, I'd like to share the current situation of COVID-19 outbreak in Japan. This graph shows the trend of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Japan daily from January to March 26. The number of new cases in the last 2 weeks range from 20 to 19 cases per day. As of 26 March, the cumulative number of confirmed cases with symptoms is 1,191, and the number of deaths is 46. Secondly, I would like to share the situation of death cases in Japan. This graph describes the trend of number of deaths in several countries based on WHO situation report of combat COVID-19. The horizontal axis of this graph describes day 0 as a day when the first death occurred. The number of deaths in Japan has been increasing gradually, but the speed has been moderate, and there has been no sharp increase in the number of deaths so far. In order to slow the speed of increase in the number of the infected people and delay the peak of infection to minimize the socio-economic damage, Japan takes a basic strategy based on 3 pillars to control COVID-19 outbreak. The first pillar is to enhance early detection and early response to clusters. The second pillar is to strengthen the medical services system, including the medical equipment such as mechanical ventilator and ECMO, the enhancement of intensive care capacity for severely ill patients, which is expected in the near future. And in the last pillar, we are actively communicating to citizens to change their behavior to prevent the COVID-19 infection, including avoiding high-risk environment. Next, I would like to explain about Japan's measures in more details. This graph shows how many secondary infections caused by the single infected person based on epidemiological survey. As shown in the graph, more than 80% of cases in open environment did not infect other people, while those in closed environment cause many secondary infections. In addition, this survey also found the 3 conditions, which we call 3C, but overlap in the places where secondary infection was frequently observed. That is, first, closed space with insufficient ventilation. Second, crowded conditions with people. And third, conversation in short distance. It has been suggested that avoiding such high-risk environment is important to prevent infection. For this reason, Japan took social distancing measures such as self-restraint of mass gathering and school closures from an early stage, and communicated to citizens to prevent the creation of any environment overlapping these 3 conditions. This is Japan's cluster map based on analysis of experts of epidemiology. In order to stop the chain of transmission, it's important to identify clusters of patients at an early stage. I identify the source of infection and close contact by active epidemiological investigation, and isolate as necessary. As you can see in this map, cluster took place in some specific places. Japan takes measures to identify these clusters of patients at as the earliest stage as possible and to control the spread of infection. At this moment, rapid spread of infection has been suppressed by requesting the patient and close contacts to cut off human-to-human contact as much as possible, and by monitoring their health condition through public health centers. This graph shows the trend of estimated effective reproduction number. Yellow bar indicates the number of confirmed cases, and red line indicates the estimated effective reproduction number. The effective reproduction number is defined the average of number of secondary infections created by the one infection. As shown in this graph, currently the effective reproductive number is around 1. This suggested that our measure had a certain effect to slow the spread of infection. By utilizing such data as a tool, experts considered the effective policy in each region. In fact, in Hokkaido, after mass outbreak of patient was found in end of February, experts immediately entered the area and developed the response plan based on the data, including estimated effective reproduction numbers. All these measures could successfully stop the transmission chain. However, we are concerned about the following situation. That is, the number of newly infected people is increasing mainly in urban areas. The number of infected people with an identified source is increasing. The number of infected people and the number of death cases are rapidly increasing worldwide. Many imported cases have been reported. Based on these facts, we recognize that the current situation can never be optimistic. Therefore, it's necessary to maintain health service system by preventing hospital overwhelming and control infection while minimizing social and economic damage. For this purpose, it's important to strengthen the capacity of local government to analyze the local situation by using various data and take necessary measures to control the local outbreak of COVID-19. We believe that all these measures can delay the peak and lower the level of infection. Finally, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the WHO Secretariat and member states for giving me such a valuable opportunity. Japan would like to continue working with WHO and member states to make all efforts to settle down this disastrous situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Just before I hand the floor to the next presentation, which will be from His Excellency, the Minister of Health of the Republic of Korea, I understand that there are several member states who are trying to connect. I would plead that if there are WHO staff members on using the Zoom connection, if you could kindly hang up and please allow space for member states to come on board. With that, I would please give the floor to the Minister from the Republic of Korea. Thank you.
Health authorities across the world and the WHO, under the leadership of Director General Dr. Tedros, for your commitment to overcome this global pandemic. And also, I extend my sincere appreciation Dr. and Minister Ma of China, Minister Kato of Japan, Dr. Kasai of Wipro. It is nice to see all of you in this meeting. Let me start my presentation. As of today, the total number of confirmed cases in Korea is approximately 9,300, among which 4,500 people were discharged after recovery. The number of fatalities is about 139, with a fatality rate of 1.5%. Although the situation in Korea is slowly stabilizing, we cannot afford to be complacent, as we are still seeing an increase in imported cases and sporadic spikes in group transmission. I hope the experience and knowledge of Korea shared today help member states better prepare for and respond to the outbreak. With that, I would like to stress the importance of establishing a containment system that reflects the characteristics of this virus. We have learned that, firstly, COVID-19 is highly transmissible, even in the early phase. Secondly, confirmed cases can be categorized into majority of mild cases and a minority of severe cases. Due to these characteristics, if the number of confirmed cases in a community reaches a certain level, there may be a rapid increase in cases caused by community transmission. Moreover, if the transmission is concentrated to a certain region, the medical resources in the district may not be able to handle the situation, leading to a collapse in the healthcare delivery system. In the early stage of the outbreak, Korea has experienced some confusion due to the greater than expected rapidity and the scale of the contagion. Hospitalization of all confirmed cases, regardless of severity, has caused a situation where an adequate number of hospital beds for more severe cases could not be secured. In response, the Korean government has promptly recognized the system to conduct testing on all high-risk groups to identify confirmed cases, categorize cases by severity, and provide treatment accordingly. In line with this system, mild cases are treated with the minimum possible medical resources at the living and the treatment centers, equipped with medical staff, sanitary facilities, and the hospital transport system. Meanwhile, medical resources are focused on more intensive cases to reduce fatality and prevent a potential collapse in the healthcare delivery system. By sharing this valuable lesson learned from our experience, I hope other member states could avoid unnecessary mistake and minimize confusion. After experiencing this collapse, these challenges, Korea is building a new model for infectious disease response. We have set 5 principles for our response strategy that not only reflect the nature of COVID-19, but also are in line with our value as a democratic country based on globalization and a pluralistic society. First, we rely on the participation of the public based on openness and transparency. The Korean government provides us information in a transparent and timely manner via briefings given twice a day, while the public contributes to the government's efforts by following personal hygiene guidelines and participating in physical distancing based on their trust in the government. Active participation from our citizens allowed us to prevent the spread of a virus without taking lockdown measures. Second, we contained the outbreak while minimizing restrictions on international travel and exchange. In this hyper-connected global economy we live in, it is necessary to ensure a certain level of economic exchange and travel. For this reason, Korea introduced special immigration procedures and prohibits overseas travel of close contacts for 14 days to prevent the spread of the virus without compromising international travel. Third, we do not differentiate between Korean nationals and foreign nationals. Both Korean and foreign nationals are provided with testing and treatment without discrimination. This principle not only realizes the universal value of protecting lives and human rights, but also contributes to containing the outbreak. Fourth, central and local governments closely cooperate with one another, and all members of society, including medical personnel, work together. The central government is in charge of the overall management of the situation and the response, while local governments focus on the epidemiological investigation, disinfection, and the patient treatment. At the same time, medical personnel, such as members of the Central Clinical Committee, are dedicated to patient treatment and the research as individuals take personal measures to prevent infection. Fifth, we adopt efficient and creative policy measures utilizing cutting-edge technology. Good examples would be the self-diagnosis app and the self-quarantine app based on advanced technology, and the drive-through and walking-through stations used for fast and safe collection of specimens. The world now faces a grand challenge posed by COVID-19. As a member of the international community, Korea will make utmost efforts to play a leading role in the efforts to overcome this crisis. As a part of the efforts, Korean government aims to expand export of diagnostic kits in response to requests from various countries. The government is also finding multi-sectoral measures for humanitarian cooperation, including grants. To share our knowledge and the technologies with the international community, we provide related information via email and teleconferences. Also, Korea has started clinical cohort research with the participation of WHO. I expect the results could contribute to producing international guidelines and the national containment measure against COVID-19. I hope our collective efforts based on solidarity could save lives, minimize disruptions of society, and protect economies. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I would now like to give the floor to the Honourable Minister from Singapore. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellencies, Director General Dr. Tedros and colleagues, good afternoon to all of you. In the face of this unprecedented and global threat, it is important that member states come together in solidarity to share experiences and move forward collectively. Singapore is privileged to be able to contribute to this sharing session. Currently in Singapore, we have 683 confirmed cases, of which 2 have passed away. 172 have been discharged, and most of the rest remain stable or are improving. At the start of the year, Singapore experienced an initial wave of imported cases from China, which resulted in some transmission and clusters. Now Singapore is facing a second and much bigger wave of imported cases from the rest of the world, especially from America and Europe. In the past week alone, there has been 233 imported cases, which constituted close to 70% of the cases reported. Over the coming weeks, we expect the number of cases to continue to rise as some of our overseas Singaporeans return home from all over the world. Excellencies, such a major global health crisis requires a collective global effort to respond effectively. As Director General had mentioned during the press briefing 2 days ago, there is a second window of opportunity to attack the virus. How the outbreak develops globally will depend on the strategies and efforts of the countries around the world. Singapore has been slowing down our local transmission thus far through a three-pronged approach. First, reduce importation. Second, detect and isolate cases early. And third, emphasize social responsibility and good personal hygiene habits, as well as safe distancing. To reduce the risk of importation, we have stemmed the inflow of travelers by imposing border controls and issuing travel advisories for Singaporeans to defer all travel. All arrivals will now be issued a 14-day stay-home notice. That means they have to stay at home. Our doctors have stepped up vigilance and are aggressively testing suspect cases to detect and isolate cases early. We have activated more than 900 public health preparedness clinics in addition to our public polyclinics. We have implemented enhanced community surveillance to detect cases at primary care clinics and hospitals. Our lab capacity has been ramped up to support our aggressive case detection. To date, we have done around 39,000 tests for COVID-19. This translates to about 6,800 tests per million people in Singapore. Once a confirmed case is detected, we carry out extensive contact tracing to ring-fence the infection. Close contacts of cases are placed under quarantine. We are also leveraging technology. We recently launched a mobile app called Trace Together, which uses the exchange of Bluetooth signals between mobile phones to determine the distance between users and the duration of each encounter. The data is stored encrypted on the phone and can be used to facilitate contact tracing once it is necessary. To further reduce the risk of local transmission, we have implemented physical safe distancing measures and mobilized Singaporeans to practice good personal hygiene and behave responsibly when sick. Singapore's strategy aims to slow down the infection rate and maintain it at as low a level as possible and for as long as possible. Case detection and contact tracing will continue to be the main pillar of our overall response plan, because giving up on this will risk an escalation of cases which could quickly overwhelm our healthcare system, as we saw in other countries and regions. However, As we do not know how long the pandemic will last, it is important that countries also prepare for the pandemic to be with us for quite a while. In particular, healthcare capacity is crucial. To increase capacity to treat COVID patients, our public hospitals have deferred non-urgent cases where clinically appropriate to do so. We are also tapping on private hospitals to manage non-COVID-19 patients so that we can preserve the capacity in our public hospitals to manage the outbreak for our patients. We are also beginning to send the well patients who do not require extensive medical treatment to community care and isolation facilities for monitoring so as to free up hospital space for the more serious patients. In addition to physical capacity, we also need the support of our healthcare workers. They are a special group that deserves our utmost respect and appreciation. Our healthcare professionals work tirelessly around the world and around the clock to ensure that all our patients, COVID-19 and other patients, are well taken care of. We should record our appreciation for their commitment and their dedication. The fight against the virus cannot be done by the government alone. We need to mobilize the whole population to do so. To do that, we must strengthen the trust between the people and the governments. We have been communicating with our people openly and promptly to avoid rumors and misinformation and to build trust between the government and the people. Similar to WHO, we have been holding press conferences frequently, sometimes on a daily basis, to update people and prepare them on the rapidly evolving situation and the new public health measures that may disrupt their daily lives. My Prime Minister has made televised broadcasts to address the people directly on this issue. In our experience, citizens' trust and societal mobilization are important in a major public health crisis such as this. Yesterday, my Deputy Prime Minister announced an additional $34 billion package to fight the COVID-19, to support the economy and to help our people. However, this outbreak is as much a psychological battle as it is a medical one. As we fight the battle, we must work hard to unite our people and to unite the world. In Singapore, we have SG United to bring people's hearts together, even as we keep a physical safe distance. I believe the world must do the same, SG United and World United. I believe we are only at the beginning of this fight with the COVID-19 virus. It will take some time before it is over. So let us work together to find solutions to limit the spread of the coronavirus and minimize the disruption to society, economy, and keep our people safe. Let us all stay calm, stay united, and work together to overcome COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Prior to opening up the floor for questions to our four presenters, I would like to give the floor to Director General Dr. Tedros for some comments. DG, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to use this opportunity, Your Excellencies, to thank you for your presentation, to the ministers from China, Japan, Korea, and Singapore. So thank you so much indeed. As you know, as of this morning, almost 500,000 people have already been infected and more than 20,000 people have died. And the pandemic is accelerating at an exponential rate. And it's now moving to the south, into Africa, Middle East, South Asia, and Latin America. And I know you have followed what I said yesterday during my presentation to the G20 leaders, which my messages were actually threefold. We must fight and also unite and ignite. The Ignite parties, which covers increasing production, satisfying the supply shortage we have, and also saying never again. So fight to stop the virus with every resource at our disposal and unite to confront the pandemic together in a spirit of solidarity, and ignite the industrial might and innovation of the G20 to produce and distribute the tools needed to save lives. We must also make a promise to future generations saying never again. I thank the G20 countries for their commitment to fight the pandemic, safeguard the global economy, address international trade disruptions, and enhance global cooperation. Fortunately, and this is a coincidence, of course, we all four presenters are G20 members, and we would like you to be very active in implementing the statement that the G20 leaders have issued. But thank you so much. I know you're behind all the statements made, and we really appreciate, the commitment to support and strengthen WHO's mandate. This was clearly underlined by the G20 leaders, and thank you so much for your support to the four presenters and other G20 countries who are participating. So thank you so much, and I will now give the floor to Tim, back to Tim, for our discussion, for questions by other countries. But we will, as I said earlier, we will continue to have a platform like this to share experience. This is a new virus, and we should learn from each other.
Thank you very much, DG. Just prior to opening up the floor for questions, I would just like to read out the additional ministerial level participants who have come on board since I read the earlier list. And thank you again for indulging us with this process, which is a new process for all of us. Additional ministerial level participation: Bahrain, Bhutan, Ethiopia, Ghana, Ireland, Kazakhstan, Maldives, Mongolia, Nigeria, Russian Federation, Switzerland, South Africa, Syria, Venezuela, Zambia. And please forgive if I have omitted anyone from that list, and if I have not mentioned, please send a notification to the MS COVID-19 mailbox. We're now in a position for questions. What I will do is, as in previous weeks, take 3 member state interventions in a series. Please keep your interventions brief, a maximum of 2 minutes, and focus, please, on the technical aspects, and identify which of the 4 presentations you are directing your question to. And as I mentioned at the outset, we do have some of the key WHO technical staff on the issue here. If there are questions of a technical nature which we can also take on, I would propose we take those questions and answer them at the end of the session. I am conscious of the interest we have today. We will get through as many member state interventions as we can. So using the Zoom function to raise your hands, we are now ready to accept any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We recognize the Ministry of Health of Lithuania. You may have the floor, please. Lithuania, you have the floor.
Hello, do you hear me?
You please proceed.
The Vice Minister is not here, and we are not taking the floor.
Could you repeat? I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, the Vice Minister is not here, is not available to participate, and we are not taking the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Lithuania. I'll now hand over Jude to please moderate the following questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. May I suggest that if you don't wish to take the floor, you don't raise your hand, because the system allows us only to see those hands that are raised so we can call you. If you don't wish to take the floor, don't raise your hands. We do have the Secretary of State for Health for Hungary, we have the EU, and we have the Russian Federation. If your hands are up, we assume that you want to take the floor. If you're not, would you kindly please put your hands down? May I now invite Hungary to be followed by the EU delegation and Russian Federation. Hungary, you have the floor.
To discuss, you are unmuted by host.
Proceed, you're live.
Yeah, do you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. Please proceed. Thank you.
Good afternoon, this is Iliko Horvat here from Hungary, being State Secretary responsible for health. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to tackle this global challenge together. Second, we really appreciate all of those colleagues who fought through this fight in China, in Japan, in Korea. So really appreciating their efforts and their successes, sharing so openly with us which went well and which worked well. And in Hungary, where we acted up very quickly when the first few cases occurred during our spread of the virus, we learned a lot from our Chinese community, where the people were happy to share the experience what China mentioned, and they were very open and very careful how they behaved and how they traveled. So therefore, they really helped to stop the spread of the virus. What we had here, we were in a lucky circumstances that the virus only started on the 4th of March in Hungary. But by that time, we had a very strict ruling and a very strict prevention measures to stop the further spread. Therefore, we foresee that our preventive efforts to slow the virus spread, and we do hope and we envision that we will have a peak which is kind of slow. We're very open to tell anybody and everybody all details what our small country is doing to stop. But my biggest lesson, what we are learning here, is that if we collaborate on a wider scale and if we do all our precautions measures before the number of the infected people start to increase on the exponential curve, if we really act during the first week of the community spreading of the virus, we are able to save lives and we are able to save our healthcare workers from the threat of completely overwhelming disease, and we can decrease the number of people dying due to the spread of the virus. So therefore, I think here inside Europe, we need to share this experience with each other. We have to make firm steps, and I'm very open that we can teach these lessons for those countries where the virus hardly started. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary of State. May I now proceed to EU delegation? Kanis, you have the floor. Kanis, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Jude, and good morning, colleagues. I have one question and one request. We see more and more measures being applied by member states that interfere with the free flow of personal protective equipment and other vital supplies. Does the WHO have a list of essential equipment for healthcare facilities, akin to the essential medicines list, that could be used to improve the trade and other movements of the equipment, etc., that are necessary to fight COVID-19? If not, could WHO consider creating one? And then I have a request. I'd like to thank the Excellencies, the four ministers, for their presentation. presentations. And I wonder if the Secretariat could put a link up on the screen at the end of this meeting so that we could download them. Thank you.
Thank you, EU. May I now invite the Russian Federation?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Russian Federation, you have the floor, please.
Уважаемый господин генеральный директор,
Thank you very much, Director General,
уважаемые коллеги,
distinguished colleagues.
Российской Федерации принят комплекс масштабных экономических
The Russian Federation has taken comprehensive,
смягчения негативных последствий пандемии.
wide-reaching measures to mitigate the negative effects of the coronavirus outbreak.
Инфекции США, раннее выявление, профилактика передачи внутри страны,
We are looking at detecting cases, tracing
оказание медицинской помощи заболевшим.
and treatment, and doing our very best to provide the appropriate medical care to those who are infected.
И научно обоснован.
We are making sure that our work is based on evidence and scientific research. Support from the WHO at this time of pandemic will be essential.
Как отметил в ходе вчерашнего экстренного саммита группы 20 президент Российской
As
Федерации,
was said at the G20 summit yesterday by the President of the Russian Federation,
сегодня усилия ВОЗ должны быть направлены на выявление
WHO's efforts today should be
коронавируса в странах, где нет
directed, we think, at hiding hidden epidemic of COVID-19 in those countries which are not in a position to do so themselves.
разработку вакцин и лекарств.
We are also in our own country looking at speeded up research into development of a possible vaccine and of treatment. The most important task that we face at the moment is to make sure that we can guarantee access to testing with the appropriate equipment. Russia has already tested over 220,000 people. And we are using the resources we have to do that. We're trying to raise production to 500,000 testing kits a week. Our country is also cooperating with foreign partners in other countries on research into COVID-19. Just a couple of months ago, we shared 300,000 testing kits with other countries. With 19 countries. And those include countries of the CIS, Iran, Mongolia, the People's Democratic Republic of Korea, Syria, and others. In Italy, we have sent 15 aircraft with equipment and assistance. This current pandemic is a major threat to the health systems in all countries, and it's only through cooperation among ourselves and with WHO that we will be able to conquer the pandemic. We are ready to provide help and support to all those countries who are in critical need of it. In conclusion, I would like to thank the Director General for his efforts and like to know whether the Emergency Committee is going to have another meeting, and if so, when, please. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Russia. We would kindly entreat that all speakers try and limit or be brief in the intervention, because we have quite a number of people, countries that have raised their hands. So we will crave your indulgence in this. May I kindly respectfully ask Mongolia to be followed by Malaysia and then Qatar. Mongolia, you have the floor.
Greetings from Mongolia. Can you hear me?
Can hear you. Please proceed.
Okay. First of all, we would like to thank you for this great timely opportunity to get some insights and share our thoughts and possibly ask a few questions on the issue. So we are very grateful that Mongolia has had some time to get prepared. And also, we'd like to thank for WHO and donor institutions like Asian Development Bank support. And also, I would like to mention that we've been joined here by Minister of Health Sarangil and the WHO country rep Dr. Sergey. It was understood by us that early detection and early treatment is a really good strategy to contain the future potential. On that note, I'd like to ask 3 questions. First one, we are aware of the fact that average hospitalization days depend on severity of the disease of each individual. However, I would like to direct our question from the 4 countries presented. What was and what is the average hospitalization days? What were your main criteria for curing and discharge from hospital? That was our first question. And second question will be directed to Korea and Japan. There are about 500 Mongolian citizens who are all wanting to come home from Korea and Japan next week. And would it be possible to ask for your kind collaboration in voluntarily testing those Mongolian citizens? Yeah, because we've had several cases of importing the disease from abroad. Last question is, when is the realistic due for vaccine production? We've been reading about this, and there are all kinds of information and ongoing efforts, but I just wanted to candidly ask about this. What is the realistic due for mass production and early production? Thank you.
Thank you, Mongolia. May I kindly invite Malaysia, and then we'll revert to the chair for some answers. Thank you. Malaysia, you have the floor.
With 26 casualty, which is mortality rate of 1.2%. I would like to pose a question about to know if there is any update or information from WHO on the development of vaccine for COVID-19. And for that, we would like to learn from other countries which have successfully developed the rapid test kit for antigen detection without amplification for COVID-19. And thirdly, what is the best 3 measures to be implemented by countries in order to successfully flatten the curve of COVID-19 infection? And we wish all the best to all of us in the world to combat COVID-19. Thank you.
Chair, thank you very much. Could we move on to Qatar, and then we will take a set of responses from the countries and the chair. Qatar, you have the floor. Qatar, you have the floor.
Hello, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for the 4 presentations by the 4 excellencies. And we are always working together for the unity. The state of Qatar has worked towards mitigation, preparedness, and also tailored response towards the COVID-19. The question is, what countries like China, Korea, Singapore, and Japan found very helpful in reducing mortality, and how they are addressing what is everyone is really facing, lab testing challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Qatar. May I pass the floor to the chair? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jude, and thank you for those questions to date. I would suggest that specific bilateral questions can be taken up offline or through a subsequent process. We had a question from the EU which was directed to the technical secretariat here. I wonder if I can hand the floor to Dr. Maria or Paul to address that specific issue from the EU in the first instance. Over.
So thank you very much. The question was around the essential supplies and the supplies that are needed. So I can start and I'll have Paul or Mike supplement. We do have a disease commodity package that has been published online. I'd like to refer all of you online to our website in which we have a big blue box on the top that says country and technical guidance. Within that website, you will see a large number of guidance organized by topic. And in one of those boxes, it says operational support and logistics. Within there is our disease commodity package, which outlines the materials that are necessary for COVID-19. So please do look at that, and you will see all of the listing of materials there. Paul?
Yeah, thanks. And we'll be posting out today a subgroup of that. So the DCP package for COVID-19 includes the full package of supply, and within that, we'll be publishing a list of the critical items where we're seeing severe shortages on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'm going to hand the floor back to Jude for a moment to introduce the next set of questions.
Thank you, Chair. I think Mongolia had asked of the 4 presentations what the average hospitalization time is and what are the criteria for discharging patients. There was also a question from Malaysia, similarly to that of Mongolia, on the realistic timeline for vaccine development, and then, of course, on the rapid testing without amplification. The other question that I believe I got from Malaysia was the 3 measures that need to be implemented in order to flatten the curve. Then, of course, Qatar wanted to have a bit more understanding of how the other countries are addressing these challenges. May I give the floor to the Chief Scientist?
So this is Dr. Swaminathan here. Thank you for the question about vaccines. Really important. And eventually, we would need a vaccine to stop this pandemic. At the moment, we're at the very early stages. So there are about 50 different candidate vaccines that are being at the very early stages of development in academic centers, universities, and in companies. The organization called CEPI have funded 8, and they will fund 2 more candidates, so about 10. But there are many other funders who are also national funders and others. Now, the next phases, of course, will have to go into human trials. The 2 early ones have gone into human trials, one in China, one in the US. After the phase 1 trial that establishes the safety and some immunogenicity, these then need to be tested in phase 2 and 3 trials. So realistically, we're looking at 1.5 years at the very minimum to have a vaccine which is in the quantity sufficient to be able to provide enough for everybody who needs it. So this is still a tool that we hope will come, and we don't know. We have to wait and see because the research has to be done, but it may come within 1.5 to 2 years.
Thank you very much, Chief Scientist. If I could go back to the countries that made the presentation, should they wish to respond to some of the questions that have come in, please indicate and then I can give you the floor. Does Japan, China, Singapore, or Republic of Korea wish to answer the questions related to the hospitalization days and the criteria for discharge? Thank you. Do any of the countries, Singapore? Singapore, you have the floor.
Okay, good afternoon. Yeah, so our colleagues from Mongolia asked about the criteria for discharge from hospital. We require our patients to be clinically well and also to have 2 negative swabs
24 hours apart before they can be discharged from the hospital. Our colleagues from Malaysia asked about the 3 best interventions. We would say, as mentioned in the intervention by my minister just now, early detection of cases, isolation of contacts, and social responsibility by the population. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Singapore. Would China or Japan be in a position to respond to the questions? If not, I'll proceed to take the other questions. And thank you very much for your indulgence. Sorry, do we have Korea or China on the line, or Japan? Okay, China. You have the floor, please proceed.
I would like to answer the question by Mongolia about the average hospitalization days. According to the present situation, for the mild patients, it's about 2 weeks. For the severe cases, sorry, I can't hear how many days. Normally, the severe cases usually have other diseases too. About the criteria for discharge, it's mainly about his recovery and his situation, and also nucleic acid testing. We should make 2 testing. If it turns negative, then we can discharge. At the same time, we should prevent we should make observation. After discharge, we will make observation of 14 days. Concerning the 2 questions of Malaysia, one is the best practice according to our experiences. We try to for early isolation, early discovery. All possible sources of contamination should be discovered and managed. Those confirmed cases or suspected cases and the close contacts on all the patients with fever, all are all included and managed. Secondly, we should expand screening. When we discuss suspected cases, we should, in a timely manner, screen and test. Secondly,
是我们一直关注的重点，尤其是对老年人、慢性患者一些特殊的场所，要进行主动的排查、
groups, especially the old people, etc. We make specific screening and testing.
有5个渠道来开展这方面的工作。我们有些疫苗呢，有的已经进入1期临床试验。
Of the vaccines are already in the stage of clinical use.
大概是这种。
This is more or less so.
China, I recognize Japan. Japan, you have 2 minutes, and then we'll move back to take a few more questions. Japan, please, you have the floor.
平均輸率はカウントしておりませんけれども、一般のインフルエンザ等に比べたはるかに長いということは分かっています。
With regard to the question of what are the average hospitalization days, it has not necessarily been the case that Japan had come up with such a number, but we can definitely say that it's much longer than the hospitalization days for the ordinary influenza or flu.
また退院基準については、症状が軽くなってから48時間後に1回 PCR 検査を行って陰性であれば、その後また12時間後にPCR 検査を行います。要するに続けて2回陰性であったことをもって退院とすることにしております。
As for the discharge standard, once the patient's symptoms become mild, after 48 hours, first the PCR test will be conducted. And if it is found out to be the negative, then after 12 hours, another second round of PCR test will be conducted. And if the negative is shown for both of the PCR tests, then the patient can get discharged.
3つやるべきことについては、私どものスライドの3番目と4番目、特に3つの C、ハイリスクの環境を避ける、いうような行動変容を国民にもたらすということ、クラスターを早期発見するということ、そして早期診断、重症者への集中治療の充実、これが3つ重要なポイントだと思います。
And as for the 3 essential items that our countries are recommended to take, please look at slide 3 and 4 of a Japanese presentation, which is noted with the 3 C's. It's very important to identify the high-risk area, induce the behavioral changes on the part of the people, early detection of the clusters, and provide the care to the most severely affected people, and so forth.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Japan. May I quickly now move to Vietnam, followed by Maldives and Brazil. Vietnam, you have the floor.
What are the significant factors to predict the model of COVID-19? Model of COVID-19 in Vietnam, we have now we have 163 confirmed cases. More than half of this is import from outside, and some from local transmission. Now we worry about the outbreak is near. But, our government has very a lot of strictly method to detection, quarantine, and treatment. But we'd like to hear about some experience from other countries to predict about the outbreak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vietnam. Could we have Maldives, followed by Brazil, and then Egypt? Maldives, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Excellency. I just would like to appreciate the presentation from China, Korea, Japan, and Singapore. In Maldives, being a very small country, and our population is less than the global resource mobilization and human resource is a challenge for us. So I would like to suggest that the efficient global or regional coordination of human resources and supply chain will be very crucial for a country like this. We have been preparing for this for almost 2 months since the beginning of the crisis in China. And the lessons from China, Korea, and Japan, and Singapore, these are very helpful for us. But being a small country, a country where we produce no resources, these challenges could only be attended through global or regional coordination. So I just thought to highlight it. And I really appreciate the Director General and the whole team at WHO and your effort. And appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maldives. Could we have Brazil, followed by Egypt, and then Bangladesh? Egypt, you have the floor. Sorry, Brazil, you have the floor.
Sorry. Hello, good morning to all. We would like to make 5 questions in this morning. Thank you very much for all the presentations and clarifications. Concerning equitable access, DG Tedros has been pointing out to the need to ensure equitable access to health products identified or developed to fight COVID-19. Which actions is WHO taking forward in this context? The second question would be, which are the concrete results of the G20 meeting of yesterday, 26 March, for the fight against COVID, and what are the follow-up initiatives? Number 3, could WHO provide an update on results of different protocols for testing and treatment already in place or tested? Which is WHO's state-of-the-art recommendation on this? Number 4, in the past few days, there have been some promising, albeit cautious, news that countries hit first would be witnessing a much diminished increase in number of new cases. At the same time, there have been some spikes, leading authorities, such as in Japan, to consider resuming more stringent measures to avoid a second wave. What WHO has to tell member states about this possible second wave? And the 5th and last question is about the supply chain for medical equipment and other health-related products that remains very much stressed, and many countries are facing shortages of essential products. What is WHO doing in this regard? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brazil. May I now call on Egypt, followed by Bangladesh? Thank you. Egypt, you have the floor. Egypt, you have the floor, please. You've muted your microphone. Please proceed. Honorable Minister, I think you're still muted. Could you unmute yours? Okay. Whilst you work on yours, could we please proceed to the... Are you online now, Honorable Minister? I would ask that we take some other questions and then come back to you, if that is okay. Thank you. Whilst you... Sure. Please, I think we have the Minister of Bangladesh, followed by Guyana. Minister,
hello.
Please proceed.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed. You have 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I thank Dr. Tedros for all the arrangements. And I appreciate all the 4 countries that shared their experiences and knowledges. Bangladesh at present is having 5 deaths and confirmed cases 48, discharged 11. And so the coronavirus is up till now quite contained, though we have got a high population and high migrant population coming into Bangladesh. So only the best thing that is from our side is early isolation, early preparation, early detection, and early preparation, and also awareness building. That is our experience, and that is what we are doing now. the entire country, including the Prime Minister, is now working together. And now we are in a lockdown situation and we are maintaining that. I have some question. That is, what are the alternative to ventilators? That is one question. How to increase medical supplies? Will WHO respond to it? Regarding the test, there are two types. One is the PCR type and another is the rapid test. Is rapid test reliable? And then what are the sources for the rapid tests? And is there any medicine which can be treated for the critical patients that we have in the hospital? And is there any guideline how to protect the doctors and to isolate the patients of coronavirus inflicted from the normal patients in hospitals? So those are my questions.
Thank you very much, Bangladesh. Could we now have the Minister of Guyana?
Good morning. Are you hearing me?
Yes, please, ma'am. Please proceed.
Good morning, all, and thank you very much, Dr. Tedros and team, for the exemplary work that you have been doing and the tremendous amount of information you've been sharing with us, the guidelines, the information in terms of our preparation, etc. Several of my questions were already asked. However, I would appreciate if we can have a response with regards to WHO's recommendations on the use of the RDTs. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Could I invite Haiti, followed by Tanzania?
De cette occasion que vous nous donnez pour apprendre ensemble de l'expérience des autres pays.
And thank you for giving us this opportunity to share in the experience of other countries. In Haiti, we now have 8 confirmed cases already reported, and therefore it's essential that we start to do something to tackle the threat. The government is at the moment trying to contain the spread of the virus. Solidarity is the basis of which we're trying to do that, and we hope we will get international cooperation and support. We're mobilizing our own national resources and capacity, but we will need the support as well. We'd like to have a better understanding of the protocol for treating asymptomatic patients who have tested positive, and we'd like some more information on the protocol for dealing with the deceased in a safe manner when that is required. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I kindly invite Tanzania, and then I'll go back to Korea, who wishes to make some interventions. Tanzania, you have the floor.
To congratulate the WHO. Thank you very much. I'd like to congratulate the WHO for organizing this meeting, but also Japan, Korea, and China for sharing experience on responding to COVID-19. And I have a small question which has also been raised by Bangladesh. We would like to learn and understand on the rapid tests for COVID-19, as the WHO has not pre-qualified any, and we see an increased shipping of the rapid test in Tanzania. So I'd like to get a position of the WHO and maybe experience from China, Japan, and Korea. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tanzania. I'll go back to Korea, and then I understand Egypt is ready to take the floor. So after Korea, we'll go to Egypt, followed by Bhutan. Korea, please, you have the floor. 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
정도면 완치가 됩니다. 그리고 중증 환자의 경우에는 이것은 상당히 넓은 범위에 걸쳐서 나타나는데, 빠른 사람의 경우는 약 4주 내지 5주, 그리고 아주 중증인 경우에는 그 이상 더 시간이 걸려서 아직까지는 정확한 평균 입원 일수를 계산하기 힘이 듭니다. 두 번째 질문에 대한 답은 먼저 답을 할게요.
Yes, I would like to answer the two questions from Mongolia.
period for the confirmed cases, for mild cases, the average might be 2 weeks, but for more severe cases, it is a very broad range. It might take 4 to 5 weeks, and it could take longer for more severe cases. So it is difficult to pinpoint an exact figure for the average number.
두 번째 질문은 귀국하는 몽골 사람들에 대해서 테스트를 해줄 수 있냐는 것이었습니다. 지금 한국의 정책은 국경을 들어오는 입국자에 대해서는 증상이 있을 경우에 PCR 검사를 하지만 귀국하는 사람들에게서는 어느 나라에 대해서도 검사를 하고 있지 않습니다. 그것은 거꾸로 말하면 대부분 다 이 코비드 바이러스로부터 안전하게 잘 지내고 있기 때문에 별다른 정세가 없다는 것은 전염되지 않았다는 뜻에서 검사를 하고 있지 않다는 것을 말씀드립니다.
And about the second question, testing Mongolians who wishes to be repatriated and testing them. Basically, Korea's policy is to conduct PCR testing on all inbound travelers who show symptoms, and we do not test outbound travelers who doesn't show any symptoms. So that is our basic principle, and this is, in other words, an evidence that they are living safely in Korea without the risk of being infected of COVID-19 because they are not showing any symptoms.
그리고 말레이시아에서 질문했던 세 가지 베스트 메저는 저는 이렇게 생각합니다. 첫째는 가능한 빨리 환자를 찾아내라. 그러기 위해서는 좋은 그 검진 키트가 마련되어 있어야 된다 생각하고, 그리고 중요한 것은 환자를 앞서 말씀드린 것 같이 환자를 분류해서 경증과 중증으로 분류하고, 경증 환자에 대해서는 가볍게 처리해도 낫지만 중증 환자에게 의료의 자원을 집중하라는 것입니다. 그리고 세 번째는 병원 감염을 방지하는 것이 대단히 중요합니다. 의사들과 의료인들이 이 질병에 감염되지 않도록 최선의 방법을 강구해야 되고, 나름대로 저희들은 그에 대해서는 경험을 가지고 있어서 더 필요하시다면 자세한 방법은 따로 말씀을 드리도록 하겠습니다.
And regarding the questions from Malaysia, the 3 best measures in the fight against COVID-19. The first would be early identification, which would need advanced testing kits. The second would be categorizing all the confirmed cases by severity and focusing the medical resources on severe cases. The third would be preventing hospital transmission. This is very important. And we are focusing on protecting transmissions to all the medical personnel, and we have gained some experience in this. So if you want more information, we will be providing that information to you.
Thank you very much, Korea. I would suggest that we take one more question and then we'll go back to the chair so we can have some responses to the questions. I understand Egypt is not ready yet, so may I invite Norway? Norway, you have the floor. Norway, you have the floor. It appears Norway is not ready. I will defer to the chair and then we'll come back and take a few more questions. Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Jude. We've received several questions which were primarily directed to the technical colleagues here in Geneva. I suggest that we hand over to the technical colleagues for some responses. In light of the time permitting, we will come back and have one final round of member state interventions. For those questions which we've been unable to address today, and for additional questions which are coming in, if you can please submit those to the MS COVID mailbox, we will endeavour to get back to you. But on that, if I could hand over the floor now to Dr. Mike Ryan, and if I can hand the floor to Maria. Okay, thank you.
So thank you. So I'll answer some of the questions as they related to WHO recommendations and guidance materials that we have. Again, I would like to refer you to our website where we have a large number of technical guidance materials on different areas of work, some that relate to laboratory testing. And I will remind you that what we do is we post these guidance. We're working with a large group of partners across the globe, including many of you who are online, to write these guidance, and then we're updating them. So there's laboratory guidance, which is looking at the use of molecular testing, and there's a large number of molecular tests that are now available. We are working on a process to validate these tests to ensure that they do what they are supposed to. There are a large number of serologic assays and rapid tests that are coming online as well, and we are following a similar process to try to validate these to ensure that, again, they do what they say they are meant to do in terms of testing patients. We have guidance online which relates to the dealing of dead bodies for COVID-19. That is something that was recently posted. We can work with the Secretariat to make sure that these individual guidance materials do go to you. We have information on there about infection prevention and control measures and the protection of our frontline workers, particularly focusing on how to limit and prevent transmission in healthcare facilities. And we have that information written in several different ways, some aimed at technical audiences, to hospital staff, to ministers of health, but we also have posted some Q&As online directed at the healthcare worker. So that we can try to get that information to you, to those that need it most. And this focuses on the use of standard and droplet precautions when caring for patients, with the exception of when aerosol generating procedures are being conducted and by healthcare workers. And in that situation, we recommend airborne precautions. I'll end there.
So there are two questions I'd like to take. The first one is on the results of all the different clinical trials and studies that are going on worldwide. We are keeping track of that, and we have a research page on the COVID website that has a landscape of all the different drugs as well as the vaccines that are currently in either trial or in development. As and when evidence becomes available, we will make sure that we update our clinical guidance. But as of now, there is no proven therapy for COVID-19, either for treatment or for prevention. It's all in research. The other question from Brazil I wanted to address was on the equity issue, and to ensure you that this is at the top of our minds, and that WHO is working, and we will work with all of you to advance the key principles concerning the sharing of materials based on existing instruments and previous work that's been done. These principles, of course, are that we should ensure the sharing of materials and information is rapid and broad, but that access to diagnostics and other countermeasures, drugs and vaccines, which result from this research is equitable and based on public health needs. And we hope that the international community and that member states will be willing to explore opportunities for collaboration, which is informed by the objective of fairness and equity. Thank you.
Thank you, Soumya. I'd like now to give the floor to Dr. Mike Ryan, to be followed by Dr. Major. Mike, you have the floor.
Just a couple of specific responses regarding testing. We will be issuing more guidance, because it is becoming confusing for our member states as new tests emerge and people are talking about antibody tests and rapid tests and point of care diagnostics and rapid high throughput testing and kit testing, and it's all becoming a little confused out there as to what's actually there, what's working, what's available. We have issued recent guidance on laboratory diagnostics and their use, and I point you to them. We will be scaling up significantly WHO support to both kit testing and platform testing and high throughput testing based on member states' needs. Are involved in various stages of discussion in order how to do that. And we're doing that in collaboration with entities like the Global Fund, many others, and private sector bodies. With regard to vaccine scale-up, and Sumia is correct on the timescales for vaccines and others, but there is a big decision coming very soon, and that is we will have a number of candidates in testing. There will be a signal at some point for a number of those candidates that they have clinical efficacy of some kind. But before final trials are complete, if the world wants large volumes of those vaccines available to move straight away at the end of trials, the world is going to have to make a decision to scale up production at risk. In other words, to scale up production of vaccines before the final testing results are available, so that when the final testing results are available, the world can immediately begin to use those vaccines that finally make it through. Now, they are very important decisions, and they're not research decisions. They're very important strategic decisions that have to be made by governments to effectively invest in large-scale production of vaccines that may actually not be used. The trade-off is that if this is done, as soon as there is clinical efficacy established for any of those candidates, you can immediately begin to vaccinate people. This could take 3 to 6 months off the time it takes to get vaccine use at large scale, but there are huge financial risks associated with that approach. So this is something member states are going to have to consider very, very carefully and at a very, very strategic level. The Director General has been discussing this with Gavi, with CEPI, with many others over the last number of days, and I believe with the G20 as well. And WHO will be working, myself and Sumia will be working very hard on this agenda, but we also will be bringing others to help us advance this extremely important agenda in the coming days and weeks. It's interesting how many of you as member states have asked what are the 3 things, the 4 things we need to do, and I think this is really, really good, and I very much the answers from the member states who've given the presentations today were really, really excellent in terms of doing what we know rather than predicting what we think we should do and then half doing it. We need to get on with doing the things we know that work and that are clearly being demonstrated to work. And I do reflect very positively on our colleagues from Korea talking about you have to focus on detection and testing of all cases and quarantining contacts, isolation and care of all cases. And most importantly, I think community participation and ownership. I think that was said as social responsibility, ensuring that our communities are not only on board with us and are responsible, but are involved and engaged. And I don't think it's ever possible to break a massive outbreak response down to a very small number of things, but I thought that was the best description I've ever heard of effective outbreak response.
Thank you, Mike. I'll now give the floor to ADG for preparedness. Zhao, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Now, just quick answer to the Russian Federation question about the emergency committee. And as per the IHR requirement, the emergency committee will be meeting 3 months after its first meeting, which is the first week of April, to assess the situation and to see if there is any need to advise the DG on new recommendation or change the recommendation.
Thank you very much for that. I'm conscious of the time. We've only got a few minutes remaining. As I mentioned, we will, for questions we have not been able to get to today, we will come back to you with those. I also will have the Secretariat send a package containing the slides from today, the Director General's speech, some of the technical materials that Dr. Maria mentioned would be available. We'll send that out in one concrete, discrete package to you. I think if we've got time for 3 very succinct questions and 3 very succinct responses. Jude, can you please announce the next 3?
Thank you, Chair. We understand the Minister of Egypt is back online. Following her, we would have Bhutan and then India. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you. I would like to express. Hello. Hello.
I would like to express my good thanks to Dr. Tedros, WHO,
Honorable Minister, we're unable to hear you clearly. It appears you have two systems on at the same time. Could you kindly put one off and have yours online? Thank you. Okay. Unfortunately, we'll have to park Egypt there for a minute and then go to Bhutan. Bhutan, please, you have the floor. You have the floor, please. Bhutan, 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We would like to thank Dr. Tedros, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, for making time available to discuss this global pandemic. As a small nation, of course, we are seriously concerned about the availability of PPEs, test kits, reagent, etc. Especially country like us, many countries like us who are highly dependent on these commodities. As per the WHO guidelines, we have made gaps communicated to the WHO country office, through the WHO country office. On the second point, I would also like to propose, in case of pandemic, a certain humanitarian corridors so that there are these supplies could be made available to the member state, where the member states where the health systems are weaker, where the economy is small, economy is weaker. These would, of course, greatly benefit the smaller nation. My last request is also in the amidst the coronavirus epidemic, we are highly concerned that the regular health services must not be hindered, especially vaccinations, MCH services. We would like to get clarification from WHO in terms of things. One is strategy for continuing our essential programs, primary healthcare programs. Second, a guide on in case of a local transmission and an outbreak in the country, what are some of the suggestions in terms of scaling down our regular health services? Those would be my 2 or 3 concerns. One, having a humanitarian corridor for distribution of medical commodities. Second, on guidelines on continuing the primary interventions. And third, of course, high-risk medical interventions in case of a full blown outbreak. So thank you very much. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Bhutan. Could I please ask India to take the floor? Please proceed, Minister.
Yes. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Dr. Tedros. Let me first congratulate all of you there for organizing this activity. And in one go, we are able to share the experience of all the COVID-affected countries, and more particularly China, Korea, Japan, Singapore, and those who got the disease in the initial stages. So I have to express my gratitude to all of you. Just wanted to share that when on 7th of January, China had reported the first coronavirus case and had decided and informed WHO. We in India did our first technical experts group meeting on the 8th of January itself. And within the next few days, we prepared the whole country. We had sent detailed advisories to all our people, all the states in all parts of the country. And on 18th January itself, we started screening and community surveillance. Screening at our airports, which we followed up with screening at our seaports and also our land borders. We screened over 4 million people during the course of the last few weeks in the country. And right now also 2.5 lakh people in India are under community surveillance. We have thousands of people now being watched very meticulously within the quarantine facilities that have been created by the central government as well as the state government, and also the passengers who have been advised home quarantine. Within a short span of time, we could establish 120 labs in India. And also now we have the support of 35 big lab chains from the private sector. Fortunately, our Prime Minister has been monitoring everything from the day one. Everything is being monitored by the Cabinet Secretary and the Health Secretary. We are having video conferences with the whole country almost on a daily or once in 2 days basis. Our Prime Minister, he organized the meeting of all the SAARC countries, and he had proposed a COVID emergency fund for the SAARC nations, and with a contribution of $10 billion from India, he initiated that fund, and now we are in the stage 2 of transmission. We have done a very extensive contact tracing of all our positive cases in the country. We had something like, right now we have 724 cases, out of which 67 have already been discharged. We were able to evacuate over 2,000 people from China, from Japan, from Italy, from Iran, and almost 45 to 50 people were foreign nationals. Right now, we are in a stage where we are trying our best to ensure that a country of 1.35 billion people doesn't go into the stage 3. And that's why on the 22nd of this month, the Prime Minister appealed to the whole nation, and voluntarily the people of India participated in a Janata curfew, which was literally 100% successful. There was hardly anyone on the road. People were advised to stay indoors, also maintain social distancing. And right now, today is the third day when the Prime Minister advised the country and announced a 3 weeks lockdown to make sure that under no circumstances India goes into stage 3. Our scientists, our technologists, our people in ICMR, our biotechnology people, they are all now working for ensuring that whatever new technologies, innovations, scientific research, vaccine development, all those things, and we are in touch with whatever is happening all over the world. And of course, we are grateful to WHO for providing us with all the good quality information about what the world should do and what the world has been doing, where we have failed, where we have succeeded. All the good experiences are also being shared with us. So we look forward to all good advice from World Health Organization also in the future, and also from all the other countries who are facing this threat of the huge pandemic. We are constantly praying not only for our countrymen, but we are also praying for the whole world, for every man on this planet, so that we can actually see that we no longer have a coronavirus on this planet. And I am sure with our prayers and with the joint efforts of the whole world, we should be able to free ourselves from this tragedy which has happened to us in the last few months. I have so many things to share with you from India, but I know the limitations of time, and I don't want to overstep on what has been assigned to me, but I would love to convey all my prayers and good wishes to the fellow ministers and the fellow countrymen of various nations, member states of WHO, and all the senior officials of the World Health Organization who are working under the leadership of Dr. Tedros at Geneva. Wish you all the best. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I think you would have summed up the entire session quite well for us. This is the last intervention. May I kindly give the floor to Paul to give some brief responses to some of the questions, and then we'll hand it over to the chair and I believe the Director General to close the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just responding, I think, questions from Brazil, Bangladesh, and Bhutan on supply chain disruptions and what we're doing about it. Essentially, I think, as people are aware, there are restrictions on movement within countries impacting manufacturing, port operations, and transport operations, export restrictions imposed by member states, and the shutdown of air cargo routes, limiting transport operations by air, are all compounding the problem and creating an intractable issue that needs to be solved jointly. The Director General has outlined these issues quite frequently in his public remarks. We continue to work with industry networks, governments, and directly with industry CEOs to brainstorm and come up with solutions. What we're doing beyond that, we're looking and have created demand modeling to be able to provide forecasts to industry, as well as informing our own actions, financial mechanisms to support scale-up and the diversification of the supply base so that we can increase the number of sources of critical supplies, coordinated procurement action to avoid competition, duplication, and creating further bottlenecks for ourselves, and establishing a dedicated logistics network to handle movement. The humanitarian response plan does have a component for this, for those countries in that plan, and through WFP leadership, for which they're looking for funding. We will use this infrastructure and supplement gaps, so countries not in the plan, through other partnerships with other logistics companies. So in direct response to the question from Bhutan, yes, we are considering a humanitarian-like corridor and a number of different air bridges and hubs to be able to run this operation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Before I hand the floor to the Director General, I'd just like to acknowledge that we had a presentation from the Regional Director for the Western Pacific region, Dr. Takeshi Kasai. Unfortunately, that presentation, we had some technical difficulties and were unable to present that, but just to acknowledge RD Wepro's potential to participate in this event. With that, I hand the floor to the Director General. Thank you, DG.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I would like to thank all ministers, excellencies who have attended, our ambassadors, and all health attaches, all colleagues. In addition to that, I would like to ask you if you can send us any advice, any recommendation you have to improve this platform, because we would like to have this platform on regular basis, and in order to have better outcome of our discussion, we would like to ask you any advice you have to improve for the future. So please send us, email us, and use other means to give us your advice, and we will improve the platform. From me, thank you so much again, and all the best until we meet the next meeting. Thank you. All the very best.
Thank you very much, DG. Thank you again, Excellencies. Thank you very much, DG. Thank you again, Excellencies. All staff in ministries, the WR officers, the technical and logistical experts here, colleagues around the world, our interpretation team who are working again with some new technologies and understand some difficulties with some of the audio coming through. This is a new way of working for all of us. I wish you all the very best for this afternoon. Again, please, any questions that were unanswered or additional questions, please send them to mscovid19@who.int, and we will respond within 24 hours. With that, I wish you a very good rest of the morning, afternoon, evening, or night, depending where you are. Thank you very much.